Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're excited to be here and share this time together. My name is Kelly Brezoczky. I was, probably a 15-year primary caregiver to my father, who had Parkinson's with Lewy body dementia. And the last 10 years of his life, he lived with our family. So I have a lot of direct caregiving experience through that time shared with him, and particularly with Lewy body dementia. And it was when I was talking to Robin about ways to potentially get more involved with the Brain Support Network. One of the concepts that we talked about was the self-care of caregiving. You know, I think it's easy to say, it's always, the easy part is to say what a privilege it is. The hard part is to say how hard it really can be, and how there are times where, you feel like, how can I keep doing this, right? So I think that was the genesis for this discussion that we're having today. And I was really incredibly thrilled to partner with Mary Kerr, who is here today. I'm going to let Mary introduce herself, but she heads up the VA's home-based care program. And so she was actually an incredible gift to my father and also to myself and our whole family. And it's just such a privilege to have crossed into now considering her such a dear friend. So we thought we would do this together. And that's a little bit about me. I live here in Northern California, and am really spending most of my time now working in the Parkinson space as a result of my caregiving experience. So Mary, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello all, and thanks for inviting us to spend time with you today. My name is Mary Kerr, and I've been a caregiver for a family member with a neurocognitive brain disease. So I have experience as a caregiver, but as well as a medical provider for 40 years, providing support to both patients with the neurocognitive disorders and supporting their caregivers. And as Kelly mentioned, I came to this area of California for the VA to develop a home-based primary care program. And many of our patients are elderly and do have memory impairment and cognitive issues. So that is my role.
And I would say that we've designed this session to this time sharing today in two different areas. One is Mary is going to spend a little bit of time sharing, why learning how to take 5 is important as a caregiver. And then we have we're going to go over 5 different ways to take 5 that encompass a lot of different ways that you could take sort of a 5-minute break in many different ways. So before we jump into Mary's content, we had a question for the group, which is, if can you think of any examples of when taking 5 is important to you, or times that you've already taken a take 5 break for yourself in your role as a caregiver? And I don't know, Robin, how you let people share, if someone needs to put a hand up, or if you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah, people can unmute themselves and just speak up.
Okay. Does anyone have an example they'd like to share before we keep going?
This is Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
And last month, September, I took a trip overseas, and I put my husband in respite for about 2 weeks while I went to Prague and Budapest.
Wow. That sounds awesome.
I had booked this trip before he was diagnosed, and I contemplated all the way up to June to decide, should I go or shouldn't I go? And dear friends had encouraged me to do so, which would, help me as well as, mentally. And now that I've taken it, I'm glad I did.
That's wonderful.
That's a great example. Today we're focusing on like 5-minute breaks, but I really commend you for taking the time to prioritize that trip for yourself. That sounds like a really great experience. It's hard to do, right?
Right.
It's hard to make the choice to be away. We had one situation I can relate to like that where I had a milestone birthday and my family really wanted to take a trip together in the summer. And it was really hard to leave and we had care for my father, but it was really hard to be away. But I was really also grateful and glad that I did it. So I can relate to that example. Anybody else have an example they'd like to share?
Yeah, I have one. Stu here is um, I've been having trouble dealing with getting ready too early for us to leave our abode to go somewhere. So I have a New York Times on my phone, and I get ready maybe 5 or 10 minutes before my wife does, and have a chance to read the paper a little bit while she's getting ready. So.
An excellent idea.
And that, I think you're going to hear that idea come up when we talk about reading and writing. That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that, Stu.
Right.
Anybody else before we switch over to Mary? No? Okay. Mary, why don't we let you on the topic of caregiver self-care? Oh, back up one. Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit about caregiver self-care. And have you ever stepped out of your loved one's room and suddenly felt drained? Or your chest feels tight, your heart might be racing, or at other times you might have unexplained waves of exhaustion. Caregivers can absorb the emotions of those they care for, absorbing their anxiety, frustration, or sadness without even realizing it. The phenomenon is called secondhand stress. Even though you are not the one with the illness, being close to their anxiety, sadness, or frustration can affect your emotions and your health and how you show up in the world. So feeling tired or stretched thin is a normal part of caregiving, but secondhand stress goes deeper. If it's left unrecognized, it can take a toll on your physical and mental health and can lead to exhaustion, trouble sleeping, headaches, stomach problems, racing heart, feeling numb or hopeless, fatigue that does not go away, frequent negative thinking, and unexpected emotional outbursts. So finding ways to manage the stress is important by developing a few key skills. The first is fueling your own tank. You cannot drive a car on empty, so think of your energy as a fuel tank. To be most effective, just like a car, you have to fill your tank. So you keep the tank topped off with mini fill-ups, small moments to brighten your day, such as maybe a pet cuddle, a hot shower, a walk, or reading that newspaper. Premium fuel is a deeper recharging activity, such as going out to dinner with a friend, attend a social event, or maybe a movie night. And then you've got your routine maintenance. It's foundational habits, those things to keep you healthy so you can be the caregiver, ensuring you get adequate sleep, an exercise regimen, and nourishing meals. So the key is to be mindful of what fuels you and then make time for it regularly. And then the next slide.
Okay. And
Building emotional boundaries is important.
I think, Mary, just 1 second, the audio, it might be because it's hard for some to hear. So let's turn your audio on and we can turn mine off. That way we don't get the echo.
We're hearing nothing now. I have no audio.
Me either.
Me too. No sound.
Mary needs to unmute.
Okay, let's try again. Do you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
apologies,
perfect.
sorry.
We hear you, but is
you
Mary
hear
talking
me?
yet?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can hear
okay.
you now. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Could you hear the first section?
We could, it
Um,
was a little quiet.
Yeah,
It was
Okay.
a little quiet. This
Okay,
is better
perfect.
now. I
All
don't
right,
have an echo.
excellent.
Go back just
So-
as a quick.
So building emotional boundaries is important. It's easy for us to take on someone else's stress as your own. So setting gentle limits helps protect your emotional energy, which is important so you can keep showing up with care and compassion. And something to try is a fabulous framework. So in Fabulous, F is for flexibility. We learn to adapt your thinking, let go of established patterns, ways you used to do things, schedules, etc., and become more open to change, new perspectives and ways of doing things. A is for attitude. You discover ways to stay positive, even during difficult moments. A hopeful mindset can make challenges feel more manageable. Be open to asking for help. B is for boundaries. Set clear and healthy limits, both emotionally and physically. Know what behavior is acceptable and protect your space. U is for understanding job satisfaction as a caregiver. Reflect on how caregiving aligns with your core values. Recognize that caregiving can offer meaning, fulfillment, and a sense of purpose. L is for laughter. Embrace humor that reflects your values and seek out moments of joy, even in small ways throughout the day. O is for optimism. Nurture a hopeful outlook. The disease process continues, but choose to believe better moments are possible and that your efforts matter. U is for united. Stay connected by leaning on friends, family, community, or professional support to avoid isolation. With caregiving, it is easy to self-isolate. You do not have to do this alone. And S is for self-compassion. Be kind to yourself, especially during tough times. Offer yourself the same care you give to others. Acknowledge your efforts without harsh self-judgment. So caregiving provides both gifts and hardships that come with the complicated and often challenging role of a caregiver. When disease reduces someone to depend on another, the caregiver has a complex role to balance and protect the dignity of the care recipient. Caregiving is inherently unpredictable. There are many twists and turns, ups and downs for the caregiver. There may be no clear answers or definitive solutions. Just when you think you have it figured out, your loved one's needs may change. A caregiver experiences a range of emotions on any given day. And yes, there may be moments of anger flare-ups that occur because we cannot control or fix the situation. Raw emotion during caregiving is real and to be expected. When a challenge arises and we get to the level of feeling anger toward the person we are providing caregiving to, this may mean a need for a timeout. Some of you may be starting your journey as a caregiver, and others may be years into the journey. We learn from each other. So in this next session, we will look at ways to take a timeout while still maintaining presence as the caregiver. Please feel free to share your experiences as it is valuable to others going through this caregiver journey. So you're okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Mary? How many of you could relate to her description at the beginning when she spoke about the secondary stress that we as caregivers sometimes feel? Can anyone raise, I could raise my hand. I felt like, certainly when Mary was describing, do you ever shut, I think what you said, shut the door, you know, when maybe your person is in bed and physically yourself feel stress. I think that's a real, one of the signals that we can use to identify when is taking a take 5 break for ourselves could be useful. Does
Thank you
anybody
so
have?
much. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think sometimes you get so mired, you don't recognize these things in yourself.
Well, I think sometimes, like, particularly the deep fatigue, you know, and I think there were sometimes, I can remember there was a juncture where when my father's dementia was progressing, and it was like almost the stress of grieving the loss of a person for who they were, but yet they were still alive. Does that make sense? And that, I just remember that time so poignantly in my life, because it would often hit me after we had put my father to bed, right? And I would find myself just, you know, crying, like unpredictably, unexpectedly at times. And, you know, my children were like, "Mommy, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I would be, "Yes, I'm okay." But it was like, it really took me the self-awareness to be aware of, well, let me say, I never expected that I would experience grief like that ahead of my father's passing. Like, that was one of those things that no one had ever shared with me, or had ever said to me in any doctor's appointments. And that was actually a couple of years before Mary came into our lives in terms of with my father. So that was, I think I haven't heard that term secondhand stress before. I don't know, maybe you all have
Yeah,
heard that before, but that was
me neither.
that really resonated with me, because I think that is a primary experience that we all share at some point as caregivers, particularly as our loved ones' neurodegeneration can progress.
Well,
Yeah, I've never heard
it's
that term
another,
either. I thought it was a great term.
there's a term, anticipatory grief.
Mhm.
That one too comes up. Um, I just had something to share. I kind of missed the very first part, so I apologize if I'm in the wrong
No,
segment.
go right ahead.
Um, I had a realization. I am able to get out and do things and leave my mom at home for little chunks of time. And I was doing laps. She has Lewy body dementia, and I've been doing this for 5 years. Her live-in person. But I was in the pool swimming. You know, she's set watching TV, and I'm doing lap swimming, and I'm going over my list of, problem solving and things to do. And I thought, wow, if I'm going to do this, I refuse to, I had to shut off that part and say, I literally realized this is not feeding me if I'm going to still be caregiving while I'm doing laps. And for me to make it useful to me and be a real reprieve or, break, I'm going to force myself to just say, I'm not worrying about her right now. What may be happening? I'm not going to problem solve. I'm not going to do any of the, what's next. None of that. I'm just going to force myself to, not force, but I'm really going to be here and feel the water and just selfishly, you know, think of myself. Otherwise, I'm not going to get what I need out of it. And so that became a new way to look at when I do have my breaks, to just really consciously detach from the caregiver mode, because
That's
it
a great
is so
example.
enveloping in my whole day. I'm always responding, problem solving, fixing, what's next, set things up, keep things, the whole list of things that was important for me to feel. And another, just a tiny one, but I am able to, I can't take a nap here, but I can drive to my apartment in another city, and there I can let go and take a nap. I thought, how interesting. When I'm in my mom's house, I can't quite let go. But when I have a day off, I drive to my apartment. I can't. Anyway, I'm taking my nap, and I thought, I'm really going to enjoy cuddling with this little blanket and telling myself, I need this self-soothing, and really look at it that way and make sure I have that little blanket to cuddle and go, oh, this is so cozy. And in that way, I'm consciously recognizing my need to be soothed of all the trauma I'm dealing with all the time,
Because it is unending, right? Like it doesn't, I think you're raising a really important point, that the self-awareness to take a break, right? To relieve yourself of that responsibility is really important.
right.
Like,
And
when you were doing laps and you realized, because it's true. Like, you find yourself, maybe you're even at the grocery store, you're running errands, but you're always in the back of your head thinking about your person's needs, right? And, are they going to be okay while you're away, etc. Does anybody else have an example they can share where they've had a self-awareness about being able to separate that 24/7 responsibility just for a little bit? That's a really great example, Nancy. Anybody else? It seems like no. Okay, any questions for Mary before we jump into our 5 different ways to take 5?
Oh, I did have one more
Great,
about
okay, sure.
just the boundaries thing. It, that word is thrown around so much, and I've heard it and thought, oh, this is about drawing a line in the sand or telling people, here's where, I don't know, it just seemed my vibe of it was setting a limit or a fence or a wall. I just thought, I didn't quite get it, but I had a situation where I see it in a different light, and it was my brother had some new needs because he went through a surgery and kind of scary stuff. He's going to be okay, but I made time to reach out to him extra, beyond my life, taking care of mom, and gave him a lot of extra time to encourage him going into the surgery and then talking to him after, and sort of taking time in the evenings where I usually wouldn't, but that's when he's available. So I added him in a little bit to, I'm glad I did, to encourage him and support him and all that. But during this process, I realized, okay, my bandwidth is here with mom, beyond beyond where my hands can reach. And I realized it was getting a little too much for me to be that support system regularly for my brother, you know. So I decided I can't do mom and be Bill's support system regularly. So I'll just back off a little bit. I just won't call him as much. He won't notice. No big deal. He's got family and other people. So when I did that, I thought, wow, that was me not setting up a line in the sand, but to me that was boundary setting. And what it meant for me was not, retreating from taking action in order to keep my sanity, because I didn't have enough extra room to add that in. So I just put that as another way to look at boundaries, withdrawing,
An excellent example.
and choosing to make my needs ahead of his. That was the other way I looked at it. Oh, it's prioritizing. If you choose, I'm going to take care of myself first. Well, me and mom. And if I have extra room, I can help him too. But if I don't, I'm going to choose me first, prioritize me over the needs of others. That's a boundary.
You often hear putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? Before we can't be available to those we love if our tank, to use Mary's example, if our tank is empty, right? If we're out of gas on the side of the road somewhere, we're not going to be useful to our loved ones. Karen, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, what I wanted to share was that for me to really get a mental break from my husband, it's when my mind is really engaged. Because, for instance, if I go shopping, or if I go walking, go get coffee, or meet a friend for lunch, I'm constantly thinking of my husband, and I just can't get away from him. However, if I go dancing, or if I go to the gym for a workout, my mind is so occupied with my workout, with my dancing. When I leave, I feel really relaxed. So I guess for me is doing something that really, really occupies my mind. So my mind doesn't keep drifting back to my husband. What is he doing? How is he feeling? So that's just something I wanted to share.
That's a great example, Karen. When we were coming up with 5 different ways to take five being like a 5-minute break, right? Like recognizing we don't always get a half hour or an hour or right? Like that there are times when if we could just take 5, what would we do? And we were trying to come up with different kinds of things, different ways to take a 5-minute break, because some of these will speak more. We all are individuals, and we might have different things that make a difference for us. I would say, Karen, like you, it was interesting. I found that walking and just walking, which is moving. I'm going to segue into our first topic of just moving, for example. It was different, the focus required in doing something like a strength training class, right? Or like you're describing dancing, where the focus requires your full mind to engage in a different activity, is almost the key, right? Or to being able to let go of the 24/7-ness of the attention of that person. Nancy, it's a little bit like you saying when you were in the swimming pool, how you were able to separate, right? You were able to swim, right, with the focus of the pool and the water and your strokes, or the dancing. So we, in the area of movement, which is important, if we have the chance to go for a swim, or to go to an exercise class, or to go to a dancing class, or to go take a walk, where you really have the ability to get physical and move, that's obviously a great thing to do. For moving, we were thinking, we weren't sure how able-bodied all of us were that would be participating today. So the example that we came up with to talk about just a 5-minute moving exercise was just running through an exercise that Mary will lead us through, and that I'll try and demonstrate.
Yeah.
Does that?
And part of it is when you're with your loved one and all of a sudden you're at that breaking point. It's about stepping away. You're still present. You need to be for safety for your loved one. However, it's you taking a break to check out for 5 minutes, and then you can return again. So some ways right there. Do you have the
So I think
computer?
you'll need to, the audio is with my computer, so you'll need to stay close to be able to okay.
So Kelly is just demonstrating some things you can do in
And I
5
think
minutes.
You might need to speak to my computer. They won't hear you, Mary.
Are you able to hear me?
A
That's
little bit. We don't see you anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't see you go anywhere. And you might turn the Kelly's screen down just a tad because we can only see her from the waist down. If so, she's going to demonstrate movement, we should probably see all of her.
Okay.
Okay, and so it's very simple. So she's just gonna start from the bottom and move up, and she's going to do ankle rolls with the right. And then she goes the other direction and with the left. Yeah, feel free to do it with Kelly. And then she's gonna move up to the hips to do a hip roll.
And I think if you're able to do this, to have the feeling, it would be useful if you'd like to participate. You're welcome to go on or off video, but it's
Right.
really important to get your whole pelvis around and your whole pelvis the other direction. And this is this is an exercise we thought that you would be able to do with your loved one present if you were in a position where you were not able to get away.
And you can move up to the shoulders and do rolls. And then neck. And then reaching up. And this can be done just sitting as well, depending upon people's abilities. So whatever you're able to do for 5 minutes, just to take a break and then be able to return back to your caregiver.
How many of you participate in regular stretching or movement exercises on a daily basis? Nancy, any other hands? A few of you. Oh, yep, Libby? What kind of exercises do you do, Libby? Karen? Looks like several of you.
I do stretching exercise.
Walking the dog count?
yes.
Yes, of course, yeah. Anything
Yeah,
else?
Chime in there, Mary.
Oh, I do that Parkinson's exercise class at the Y with my husband, only I kind of do it a little more heavier, you know. So he gets exercise, and then I get exercise too.
Great.
Wonderful.
In the moving area, what's important is that I'm going to adopt your term secondhand stress. That was a really good one, Mary. I think when we're caregiving, we pick up a lot of that secondhand stress, and it's easy for us to hold tension and by osmosis to be holding that stress in our bodies. So even things like doing the hip roll, where you're taking your hips in a big circle left and right, you'll often feel, or leaning from side to side, rolling your shoulders, all of those things also, I think, can give you self-awareness about related to the tension that you may be feeling in your body at the moment. And if you have the ability to do some of that to relieve some of that tension. Mary?
Oh, could you just go over the sequence again? It was ankle.
Ankles. So this is this is like circles think about circles to the sky. It's your ankles, your hips, and you're making circles the whole way up your body. Your ankle, your hips, your shoulders, your neck, and then you're doing just reaching to the sky.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any other movement? I also wrote down dancing that was shared earlier. We're gonna send all of these examples, we'll send back, Robin, to you, and then if you want to share it back with our group, you're welcome to.
Sounds
Okay.
great. One that I do is the shoulder shrugs. Bring the shoulders up and then release them down. I've read a study somewhere that helps to drop your blood pressure. So I'm not sure that's true or not, but it feels good.
Mhm.
Restore
also
a lot
do
more
biking.
strength in those muscles up there.
Mhm.
Yeah, bicycling is good.
Yeah, I do bicycling and just try to get the heart rate up.
Uh,
Mhm.
I do, yeah, I do cardio things and Pilates. I'm like the super performer, 6 days a week. But so it's either lap swimming, bicycle riding, or I can walk around the community so it's either a half hour, or an hour and a half if I go to the gym. And I get to do the steam room if I do the lap swimming. That's a real bonus. And in all of my cardio things, I include a meditation practice where I just count to 25 in breath out, breath 3 times. That's a 15-minute meditation while I'm walking, while I'm in the steam room, or while I'm riding my bike. So I found a way to include meditation in this way of meditating, breathing meditation.
Mhm.
And then, I discovered it's a way to move the fluids in your lymphatic system around your body, and it's this series of kind of arm swings.
Mhm.
That I just do that every day just to kind of get loosened up. It takes a little more than, well, it might only take 5 minutes, but there's 3 moves. Do you want me to show you?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Okay, I will try to. Ugh. Okay, let's see if I can get far enough back. Maybe. Okay, well, I don't know if I can.
We can see you. That's great.
Okay, so the first one is just your feet are hip width apart, and you just swing your arms down while you bend and up, down, up. You do that. It's kind of a lot of them, so you start to get tired at the end, but it's just swing down, swing up, 1 and 2. You do that 30 times. Ooh. Then the next one, you put your feet in a, prone out, like a first position, second position ballet stance. And on this one, you bend forward, and then when you reach up, your head lifts up. So it's down, up, down, up, down. That one's 30. I mean, you'll get warmed up by the end, but it's not really that hard. When I get to 25, I think, okay, I've done enough. I want to stop. And then the other one is 50 of these, but this is just lift a leg at a time, 2, 3, 50 of those. That's it. That gets your lymphatic system moving, apparently.
And that last one is really good for strength and balance when you want to be able to continue to get yourself up off the floor if you get down there or fall down there.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Nancy. That's great. We'll make sure we'll include that in our notes for everybody. But just, I think the concept of even the idea that we were hoping to convey is that even when you need a take 5 break, you can do movement in those 5 minutes. I think so often we sometimes think, oh, I need an hour, I need a half hour. Like if I'm going to go take a walk, or if I want to go to an exercise class or a dancing class, or I'm going to jump in the pool. It's easy for us to think of physical activity is requiring, 30 minutes to an hour to even make it worth your while. And I think what we wanted to just make sure that we highlighted here was that we can move in 5 minutes, right? We can, you may not have your cardio rate up for a sustained 20-minute interval, but in just 5 minutes, you can mindfully do some stretches. The ones Nancy showed us with lymphatic movement were great, right? You can even do these circles to the sky, starting with your feet through your hips up to your shoulders and neck. Robin gave the example of the shoulder shrugs. Like, those are all really great examples of things that we can do when we just have 5 minutes that sort of sometimes can help us release. The most important thing is that they allow us to release that stress and physical tension. Our next topic, moving on, is music. And this is one I think that Robin had asked all of you, or asked people to think of a song that many people can relate to, a particular song causing them to feel a certain way. And one of the things I just wanted to share is I was not really a regular Spotify user, hardly at all, up until several years ago. My children were on Spotify a lot, but I was not. And I can tell you that Spotify is really super, super easy to use. And what I just wanted to share the example of, how many of the folks here today, does anybody use Spotify? Maybe raise your hand if you've ever used Spotify. Anybody? Mary, it looks like Mary. Anybody else? Maybe just Mary. Okay. So Spotify is an app that, how many of you, I guess all of you have access to a laptop. So you can use if you're on Zoom with us today. Yeah. So Spotify is something you can also access on your laptop. It's not something that you necessarily have to have on your iPhone. But if you just go to the Spotify either website on your laptop or you download the app on your phone, you can create a free account. So you don't have to I don't have a paid subscription. You just set up a free account. And when the app loads, or if you're on your laptop, you can just search on a song name and hit play, and it will play it. And so all of a sudden, when I discovered this several years ago, it was like having an unlimited jukebox on my phone. And it will also do the same on your laptop if you're working off the Spotify website. But any song that you can think of, you can find and play. And often if you search on a song, you can actually find, 5 to 25 renditions of the song. If you're interested, there's always like variety of the song you're interested in. There's typically multiple versions that you can play. And so one of the things that I found, we used a lot of music with my father. He loved music, and always, my whole life, my father was very into music. And so he would sometimes ask for songs that I didn't know, but I would search them up on Spotify and play them. And so one of the things that we ended up creating was something called a playlist for my dad. And on the home screen of Spotify, if you, when you set up an account, there's basically, you can search on songs. On the very bottom, they give you 3 options. You can search on songs that you'd like to listen to. You can save songs that you've listened to, that's your library, or you can create a playlist. And so what I ended up doing was creating a playlist for my father that we named Pap Pap. That was that's what we all called him. That's what my girls grew up calling him. And we ended up having a playlist of all of my father's favorite songs that we always used to play and sing together. And it was a wide range of music. Some of it was Willie Nelson, some of it was Tina Turner, right? It was a wide range of music, but I can tell you that having that playlist is something that our whole family has it. We all play it, even though he's passed. It's like a real gift that we still have tied to music. And so I think if you if you are interested in music, Spotify is something really easy to try that doesn't require, if you can get on Zoom for this conference, for this webinar, you can absolutely play a song on Spotify. And you could play lots of songs on Spotify. So I think Robin may have asked people, we just wanted to talk a little bit about music and what songs that you in particular turn to, or that you feel like either allow you to escape to a different place. Like there's something where you just get excited and they take you out of the moment, or a song that you find particularly relaxing. I was gonna jot down all your songs and make a playlist with them and then send that to Robin. Is something, if you all want to have it, then you can just access it as our Take 5 Spotify playlist. That would be tunes that you could listen to sometimes when you're taking a break, whether you're gonna just listen to one song or whether you're gonna be on a walk and listen to more songs. So let's talk about music and how music can be a stress relief for you, and if there's what songs bring you joy, or what songs allow you to take a break.
Well, jumping off of your Spotify, encouragement, I find singing really releases my endorphins, and I'm not always in tune. Sometimes I sing louder than I should, but that's okay. You can sing in the shower, you can sing, it's a good tension releaser for me.
And I read once a study that said you can't be singing and music tap into a different part of the brain, and it's therapeutic, and you cannot hold anger, irritability, stress when you're singing or humming, right? So so what songs do you like to sing, Susan? We'll put them on the playlist.
Oh, I think the music I listen to is pretty esoteric. Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Okay.
Myself. From the college days.
Yeah.
But there was this wonderful social worker some years ago who did a study with music and memory for people who have dementia. And he showed some incredibly heart-rending videos of people who were sort of collapsed within themselves, and then they put on a song that might have been part of this person's growing up years, and all of a sudden, like a flower being watered, you saw this person coming back to life. It was really quite compelling. But
when my father, near the very end, could not speak, he could sing.
Oh my God.
When we put on, when we had a Mary had arranged for a music therapist, someone came and played guitar and sang with my dad, or once a week. It was amazing to see talk about the brain in action. When we would talk about different songs or ask about like who wrote this song, my dad knew who wrote the song, like about what year it was written, things that you would have never in a million, I mean, like it totally made me a believer in everything that's written about music in the brain, and how it's a different language area within our brain.
yeah, Oliver Sacks has written extensively about music and the brain. He's a fun person to read. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, it's so Peter, Paul, and Mary. How about some other musicians or songs that people like?
I haven't really listened to the whole thing, but I think of this a lot, and I love the music. So I'd like you to put it on that playlist.
Sure.
Roll with it. You got
Roll
to roll with it, baby. Ba, 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 because that's what I tell myself that I need to, I feel successful. And I tell my mom kind of the same thing, but I don't tell her that. I tell her, write it out, that it'll get better, whatever. But for me, if I can roll with it and not get stuck on different issues, I feel like I'm doing a better job if I can roll with it. And I love that song. And this was so sweet. You know, my mom's got the soft voice thing because of the Lewy body dementia. And I've said, okay, look, she used to sing. Her sisters and her would harmonize together, and they were the town people that come to sing in this little town when they had events and stuff. So I don't know where it came up, but I started singing You Are My Sunshine. And she immediately joins in and is harmonizing with me.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that is just her natural thing. Happy birthday too. She'll go into harmony. And so where she'll say, oh, I can't sing, but yet it comes out. So You Are My Sunshine would be a cool one.
Great one.
Too.
We had one that I'll add from me to our playlist for today is Here Comes the Sun. That was the reason I can tell you there's so many variations on many of these songs is that when I put that into Spotify one of the first times, there must have been 15 choices of Here Comes the Sun versions to think of. So, you know, we used to play that. And, you know, sometimes I think also if we think about taking 5 for ourselves, that's what our topic today is, taking 5 for ourselves. But I sometimes found if I thought my dad was struggling or having an off time, you know, the day wasn't getting off to a good start, or in the later afternoon, you know, it just, the day didn't seem to be going as well as it could. You know, Here Comes the Sun was my go-to, because if I put that music on, you know, it kind of just got everybody, music had that much of a powerful effect. So other songs that people, thank you for putting in Bridge Over Troubled Waters. I got that from Simon and Garfunkel. I'll put that one in. Anybody else have songs we can add to our Take 5 playlist?
Don't Worry, Be Happy by
that's
Bobby
a good
McFerrin.
That's
Yeah.
a great one.
Yeah.
That's a
Don't
great
Worry, Be
one.
Happy by who, Mary? Who did you?
Bobby McFerrin.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure I get the right version for you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, like Roy Orbison and Only the Lonely, but a lot of the words I don't listen to, I just like the song. So it's not a particularly uplifting song, but it's one of my favorites.
You said Only the Lonely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
Let's see, Sharon raised her hand.
Oh, okay. Sharon?
That's and I do it with hand movements. So it's Loosen by Ali Halpert, ALYHALPERT. And it's kind of a prayer, and yeah, the lyrics are loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world and your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. So we like do this movement of loosen, loosen, let go, let go, let go. So it's combines the words with the movements. And then also go ahead.
I was just going to ask if that was written by someone in the Parkinson's community.
No, she's a Jewish songwriter. And the other thing I was going to say was I use iHeartRadio, and so that because I have a hard time. I mean, I remember all the songs from when I was back in the 60s, but you know, like now I don't know. I know I hear a song and I like it, but I don't know I don't pay attention to who it is that's singing it. So I do iHeartRadio, and you can pick different channels. Like, so I have like I was a Beatlemaniac, so I have like a Beatles channel that I can put on, and then there's a soft jazz channel that I like. And those are free, but they do have commercials. So
Spotify, if you do the free version of Spotify, they have commercials too, but it's all of these platforms. I think the key thing is that it's not hard to get a free account, And it's remarkable with technology how music is so accessible to us, and what a difference it can make for ourselves and for our loved ones, with the power of music. So I think it's a tool that even on a take 5 basis, we thought having someone just be able to access a song. Sharon, do you have a Beatles tune that you like that we could put on our playlist for
Well,
today?
somebody already said it, the one about Here Comes the Sun. That was
Yeah,
one that I was
okay, that's
thinking
on. I'll
of.
put that, yep, that
Yeah.
one. Okay.
And I just wanted to mention to Nancy, when you were talking about if a loved one, because of the disease process, their voice is becoming less.
Is that Mary talking? It's a
Yeah,
little hard
yes.
to hear. Yeah.
Sorry. Nancy was mentioning that her loved one enjoys singing, but her voice is starting to lose its volume. What we do for our patients in that case, we actually provide them a microphone. It's similar, you put it in the ear and to the mouth, and it's similar to what, a singing artist use, but it projects their voice and they still can continue to sing. So there are some options for those that are starting to lose the volume.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
had two songs. I don't know who the composer or authors are.
Okay.
Walking on Sunshine
Okay.
is one I like, and The Ceiling Can't Hold Us. We have that Grayton Casino in Roanoke Park who grabbed that song for their commercial. So The Ceiling
Okay.
Can't Hold Us. That's one association I have with that one.
Those are great options. And did you see Libby put Peggy Sue in the chat?
Oh, Peggy Sue, yes.
Okay.
There's a beautiful rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and it's by Eva Cassidy.
Oh, that is amazing.
Have you
Yeah,
heard it?
yeah, yes. I
Okay,
actually, yep, the Eva Cassidy version is beautiful. And there's also one by a Hawaiian.
oh,
I'm
I've heard that
like-
one too.
It's also beautiful. I'll put both of
Yes.
them on there. So I think we might have close to 15 songs. So
Oh.
what I will say about this, I will create a Take 5 BSN Brain Support Network playlist that has all these contributions. And Robin, I will make sure that you get it. Once you create a playlist, it's very easy to share a playlist. I'll make sure, Robin, that you get it. And then if there's anybody here today that needs assistance getting Spotify on their phone and access to the playlist, I will volunteer to help you. So if there's anybody that wants to have the playlist that you can listen to, just let us know and we'll make sure that we make that possible. I think, I have to say that having this tool, I would say across the journey with my father, we use this more and more and more, and building this PAP playlist ended up being such an incredible tool, both while he was here and since he's passed. And in the time that he lived here in California, I think I was able to, he loved Willie Nelson. And I think I was able to get him to see Willie Nelson live 3 times in the nearly 10 years he lived with us here in California. And I'll never forget at his service, we held it in an Episcopal church, and he said, Kelly, I don't think I've ever had Willie Nelson play as part of a formal service, but we're going to do it. And so it was really a beautiful thing that part of this playlist even made it into my father's celebration, and is something that I know everybody in our family and his close friends have loved having this. So we'll create one. Hopefully this will create some memories for this group. And when you need to take a break, or if you want to try a tune with your loved one, it'll be something that you can use beyond today. Any other comments on music or the role of music before we go to our next Take 5 opportunity?
I wonder if I should change mine, that Eva Cassidy, for all you happy, all you have to do is da da da, and you da 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 da. What is
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Are you thinking about?
No, it's
No,
a
no, okay.
it's a popular song. Da 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 da. All you have to do is clap. Da bum ba da 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 da. If you're happy, da 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 da. Bum. Okay, nobody else.
I think that might be,
It's
is it Pharrell?
It's
yes.
That's Pharrell. Yeah, I know. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
If you're da da
yeah.
yes.
The Pharrell happy song. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll keep Eva Cassidy too. It's nice to have a real mix. So that's great. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have one that helps me, but I don't want it on the list because
Oh.
but it's because I write music, and so this is one that I came up with that helps me because I was feeling stuck in my head and like, oh, how do I get all this stuff out of my head? And I'm doing my walk and I'm stuck, and I came up with I'm not stuck, waves go up and down. When they swirl round and around, never to be bounded. And it's got verses about life is tough and the currents are rough and emotions too. You got to let them through. Anyway, but when I feel that stuck, I immediately go to that and say, I'm not stuck. Waves go up and down. I'm not stuck. So I stopped having that feeling of being stuck because I could just go there. And
Wonderful.
another one was, I'm thinking, oh, it's windy. I can't ride my bike. I hate the wind. I hate it when it's this windy. I thought, how ridiculous. And so, I mean, getting mad. So my other song was, well, you can't get mad at the wind. It won't change a thing. You can't get mad at the wind. It'll blow when it blows. Try as you might to change life's flow. It won't do, it'll only wear you out, might as well just let that wind blow. So that tells me, don't try to change the flow of this life. And how ridiculous to get mad at the wind or think you can change it. So that's another one that helps me remember I'm just going to wear myself out if I think I can control my mother's Lewy body dementia or, you know, contain it somehow or keep it from getting worse, all that stuff.
That's fabulous that you've put words to song. That's actually a really nice transition to our next topic, which is working with words, right? And I think you've put them to music, you've put them in writing and you've put them to music both. And with that and working, we kind of kept this working with words because sometimes working with words can be lots of different things and we might all, some of these we might relate to and some of them we might not. But the concept here was that within the working with words, there might be something that you could relate to. And with that, Mary, do you want to talk to us a little bit about these?
Yeah, working with words. There's many ways that you might find that to be therapeutic. It could be reading your favorite book or the newspaper, as was mentioned earlier. You could be doing gratitude journaling, drawing. There's different ways to work with your hands and words. Does anyone have any examples that they would like to share that they find to be therapeutic?
Do any of you journal? Nancy, did you write those words down for your songs or did you put
and
them
they're on the piano. I put them on to the piano. I wrote them in music and piano, so I'm a composer also.
Yes.
But and journaling, I just wanted to mention I have had a lot of I write down my dreams. And so I have the more you tell your subconscious that you want to do this, and if you wake up in the middle of the night and you write it down, your subconscious keeps giving you more and more and more. Every night I have dreams that I'm writing down, and I've learned how to get something out of them as far as what's going on with me or help with things that may be an issue that's unresolved. Anyway, so I'd call that dream journaling. And also just if I have things that I've recognized or transformative stuff or like that idea of a boundary, I've, wrote that down. Oh, I see it more this way instead of that way. So it's kind of that, and I've done the dump list where you just have all this stuff going on and they say, just write it all down, a stream of consciousness. I'm pissed about this and don't edit it or anything. And and then at the end of that one, I thought, well, this didn't do any good. And then when I looked it back over, I realized, yeah, it did do me some good. I did see things in there that I didn't realize I quite felt that way, So just because I can get emotionally stuck is one of the things I've dealt with over this time. And so I'm always looking for ways to, find what's stuck, release what's stuck, let go, transform, all of that. So
I had heard sort of a combination of what Nancy's saying and journaling was that you lay down and you just can't get the caregiving out of your head, that a good way to let it go so you can get some sleep is to write down what you need to do the next day, write down what you're worried about, just write down everything that you don't need to keep in your head, and you can pick it up again the next morning. And it's much more relaxing.
Building on that, Denise, this isn't really, I guess it ends up, I hadn't thought of it this way. It does end up being a tool for us also. But with my father, I have, like, you see the picture, the journal book in this picture book. I must have 15 of these where I started keeping track of everything he ate, his medications, how he was doing, what was happening during the day. And it was interesting. I really didn't have this insight until you just spoke these words, Denise, but I actually think that really helped me at night when I went to bed, because I feel like it allowed me to get all on paper in one place, everything that was relevant to his day and his care in a way that it was like allowed me to be free of that when I went to sleep.
Yeah.
And I didn't really appreciate I was keeping track more for, initially it was really medication management, and with his Lewy body dementia, trying to keep track of, well, initially trying to figure out if you could make correlations. Of course you can't, but at least it felt therapeutic while I was trying. But I think that was something where, I wasn't journaling for myself, but in keeping a journal about him, really allowed me to be able, I felt like I didn't have to hold it all in my brain. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? If something was changing across the week, or if something was changing, it wasn't like I had to remember all of it. I could look back in the book and look for patterns, or look for side effects of medications, etc., that gave me the ability to sort of not have to feel I had to remember all of it every second, and there often are shifts and changes, right? Like changes happen, and that was useful. Does anybody do any gratitude writing, or that's something that you read a lot in, kind of, I don't want to say just pop culture, but the value of, waking up and thinking about 3 things you're thankful for, or the last thing before your your head hits the pillow to sleep, things that you're grateful for in your life. Does anybody practice any form of gratitude writing, or gratitude, intentional gratitude practice? Does anybody do that?
Well, if I get my prayer in for the day, that it starts with, I'm thankful for this, that, and the other. So prayer is a gratitude thing. And I have a daily word thing that's, I read every day and that kind of thing. But I know it's can be useful, but it's like I'm too busy with trying to keep everything going. I don't know why. It just like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm a member of AA. I've been sober 35 years, and I know about gratitude lists. That's the thing they talk about. And so I think just the idea of writing it down seems, I don't know why it doesn't, makes me go, eh.
It,
But
it
I think that,
pales. I
go
was
ahead.
going to say it pales in comparison to writing a song.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's so many, there's
Yeah.
other things that are more, I don't, okay, what I like to do just along this idea of reading, writing, whatever, I have all sorts of um, spiritual type Facebook things that come to me because once you look up things, then you get more of them about higher consciousness and, new ways of looking at things. And so I'm into all that stuff. Eckhart Tolle, just watching videos of the higher spiritual people sharing their stuff. So I look at all that as those things feed me and make me feel uplifted. And I just have to say, Deepak Chopra created, if anyone's into him, he has a Deepak Chopra AI that you can type in that and ask him questions. You can do it like 3 times for free before it says, okay, do you want to subscribe? But oh my God, I asked it about my mom with Lewy body dementia and having this times of confusion and how do I deal with this? I thought I gave him a really loaded question, thinking I'll get be in the moment. But no, it was very detailed. He has everything he's ever written is in this artificial intelligence version and every talk he's ever given. So anyway, I invite you, if you're into that, you can ask him specific stuff. Anyway, so I have a spiritual journey that is fed by.
Yeah,
Interesting.
spin off on that is that about reading is that I've been using Google's Gemini, very easy to use AI tool.
Yeah.
And every question I ever want to ask a doctor about PD and everything, I'm really learning a lot from that. It's helping me and as a caregiver, but also helping my wife and letting her understand what's going on. It's pretty helpful.
I will say also, this falls under the reading, like seeking information, is I found that, I don't know how many of you are on any of the social media forums for specific diseases, but they exist for all of the neurodegenerative diseases. And I found the Parkinson's Lewy body dementia groups and just the Parkinson's caregiver groups for myself personally. Sometimes I had to come off, sometimes I would go through periods of sometimes I would read frequently and then sometimes I just had to get off. Like some of it was just too hard. It was content I wasn't ready for. I just felt like it was too hard for me. So I didn't do it consistently all the time, but I often found really helpful perspective from other caregivers and people that were experiencing having a similar experience. It was useful to read, and often like some of the tips, I found some really good tips for assisted like eating, like things that just things that I could order off of Amazon that I wouldn't have had known about were it not for like the Parkinson's Lewy body dementia group on Facebook. So those tools can be useful also. In the spirit of reading, I think we talked about the app. I think you said that you while you were waiting for your wife to get ready, that you would like open your New York Times app on your phone and just do a little bit of reading, and think about the value of that to you as opposed to sitting and like tapping your foot because someone's running late or running behind, like, you know, tapping your foot where the tempo is getting faster. And the secondhand stress is amplifying, right? And so what a great way, right, to sort of feed yourself and also not amplify the secondhand stress that could come from that situation. So that was a great one that came up at the beginning of our session of our time today. Does anybody else have anything else on this topic before we move to our next one?
Just one quick one is that I've been doing a lot of video recording of storytelling, and as long as the stories are still there and they're somewhat close to reality, we have them now. So I'm using little two-minute video clips.
And those are brilliant for you to do and for your family to have. I wish I tried to get my dad to talk. He had Lewy body dementia, about his life. You know, before I was born, he was 50. No, he was 45 when I was born. So, you know, half his life was over. And I got a couple stories out of him, but it was so hard for him to talk and to collect his thoughts by that point that, bless you. Keep doing that, Stu.
It's a wonderful gift to your children.
Really is.
That's good. Okay, our next one was breathing. And this is one Mary and I had a little bit of a joke about, because we all breathe, right? And it's not hard to breathe, and sometimes we get frustrated when we're breathing. But how many people here have ever done box breathing? Can you show a hand if anybody's done this before?
I'm not sure I know what you mean by box breathing.
Box breathing.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about this. This is where you breathe in. All of the breath is on a 4 count, and this is one we'll get to do interactively. We'll all get to try it. It looks like a couple of you have your hands up that you've tried it. This is box breathing is interesting because it's a type of breathing that's not just like we are inhaling, holding, breathing out, holding, but it's the repetition of this box breathing that is actually used to reset sort of the vagal nerve, right? So when people are anxious, under stress, having a secondary stress response, for example, the people that really put box breathing on the map are the US Navy SEALs. This is one of the techniques that they train early in the Navy SEAL training for learning how to breathe when you're in a stressful situation. So this is a 4 count breath. I think someone told us that they do meditative breathing and counting to 25 when they're walking. I think, Nancy, that might have been you, but this is one where it's a 4 count breath. And so we thought this is something that we could all do together. So this is a 4 count where you're gonna breathe in to a slow 4 count and hold it, and then breathe out and then hold again for 4 counts. So Mary, maybe I can demonstrate. Do you want to count for me?
Yep.
And I can do the breathing. So, okay. Ready? Everybody can do it together. We're going to take a deep breath in.
1, 2, 3, 4. Breath and hold. And then breath out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And breath out through the mouth. Breath in through the nose. And hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and breath out through the mouth.
So you get the idea here of this breath. This sequence, what makes this sequence unique is that it's breathing, you're holding an in breath, and then you're holding after an exhaled breath. So it's not just in and out and in and out. There's a lot of meditative breathing where you're doing breath work, where you're breathing in, holding, and then doing a slow controlled sort of exhale. And then you kind of circle back into a slow controlled inhale. This is one where we actually have the breath work. What's unique is it's the holding in between the held breath and the holding after the exhaled breath that does sort of that reset on that vagal nerve system. And the holding on both directions is what takes a little bit of concentration. It takes a little bit to sort of get this down, but it's a really helpful tool, I think, for when people are feeling amplified stress. I mean, some people do box breathing regularly all the time just as an exercise, but it's one I think that if you ever feel like you know, you're wanting to bring some of that secondary stress down. One is, we talked about this with movement earlier. It came out that like focusing your mind on something sort of takes you away from whatever the caregiver chaos is. And so box breathing does take a very focused mind because it's a 4-count, a repetitive 4-count breath. And it's those 4 counts holds. So those are something that are interesting for people to try. So there were a couple of you that had raised your hands that said you had tried box breathing before. Do any of you have an experience like you'd like to share about your box breathing?
So I just put in the chat because I was at the PANC conference last week, the Parkinson's Association of Northern California, and a nurse demonstrated this, but she called it smell the roses and then blow out the candles. So I like that. I mean, I've done the box breathing for several years, but I liked when she said, smell the roses. So you breathe in with your nose and then blow out the candles with your mouth.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I felt something just then.
Yeah.
Was different. And I've done, different things with breath, holding one nostril in, out, or whatever. But for some reason, I think the holding on the out was different because at the end of it, I just felt kind of my chest not being up here. I did feel a different kind of relaxation. I was surprised. Yeah, so I like it. Thank you.
I'm glad it's nice to hear that it was used at a Parkinson's conference, and I like this name, smell the roses, blow out the candles. That's a great visual, to use with it as well. But it's one that, it's interesting. It does have, there's a lot of literature on this type of reading, and I think that it's actually more in the holding patterns, right? That's the holding in is easy because we've all learned to hold our breath. What we haven't learned to do is hold after an exhale. And that's the one where I think that you get some of this reset. Okay, so I think, Robin, we have, it looks like we're getting close on our time. So we had one more we wanted to chat about, and then we were hoping for everybody just to be able to make a quick comment before we close. So let me go to this next, the last one that we had. Can you see? Let's see. We have a mindfulness slide here. Okay, Mary?
And mindfulness, everyone has something different they might utilize. It could be meditation, which someone mentioned earlier. It could be prayers, which another individual mentioned, and it can be as simple as daydreaming. I'm wondering if you could share any other mindful tips that you utilize?
I do a walking meditation where I just say to myself over and over again, like, all will be well, all will be well, all will be well. And as I'm walking, I do that. I don't like the sitting and going, oh.
And Mary L., you had something to share?
Oh yeah, this is on the Apple Watch, they have a little mindfulness app, and you can just I don't most of the time it goes on, I'm going, I'm too stressed out to be mindful. Anyway, but it is there, and it comes up, and you can do it for 1 to 5 minutes. So I'm gonna try to use it more, because it just kind of, and then it has a little visual, goes in and out and stuff. So just
Great idea.
if you happen to have one of those watches.
I
Yeah.
found, for me, I think sometimes I have found that mindfulness is tricky when I need a take 5 break, because sometimes the idea of sitting and trying to get mindful for 5 minutes feels impossible when you're at that point of really needing a break. That's where, for example, like music or moving or some of these others might be a little bit easier, but I do think that it's an important, mindfulness can bring us to center, right? And it gives us an opportunity to come to center in different ways. And Robin had even contributed when we were preparing this, that sometimes daydreaming a little bit, right? Like trying to imagine yourself in what place would you, if you could be anywhere in the world, what place would you be in and what would you imagine that would look like, right? Or even just having a walking meditation, all will be well, all will be well. Like getting yourself to a positive place, a place that you can imagine wanting to be. We had I think mindfulness, when we were talking about being cozy with that blanket, and having that cozy blanket and being able to enjoy the self-soothing of a cozy blanket and taking a nap where you actually really can sleep is up there in the mindfulness area, right? It's a practice, a gift to yourself, right? So I think that's another good one. Does anybody else have a practice in this area that they'd like to share?
I have one. Is
Steve?
I tend to stay up too late with all the pressures that's going on in the world, plus helping my wife Kathy. I go to YouTube 10 minutes before I go to sleep and look at some comical video clips. That's one way of getting away from it all for a little bit before I go to sleep.
It's a great idea.
It works for me. So
No, I don't know if this counts, kind of, but people are always asking me when I take my little respite, whatever you want to call it. I have 1 day off a week with a caregiver here, and then a couple of Saturdays a month. But what are you doing for fun? They want to know what I did, and I have come to realize the not doing is what I have that I've recognized that's what I need. It's not, I don't need excitation or, I'm not looking for fun or to be excited. I'm looking to stop and do nothing kind of. And, I have an hour drive to get to my apartment, an hour drive back. And I used to listen to music and then different stuff. And I was working on, anyway, now I realize I just want to be silent and get to have my own space in my brain. And I think that I don't know if that's a form of mindfulness, but just recognizing I don't need to do stuff. I need to stop doing stuff. And, I'd try to fit things in. And then I realized, no, I'm happy to go to my apartment and take a nap. That's all I really want to do. And so that's something I've recognized my needs are to make space for myself and and the other one is to get at, because I'm so in the routine and the mundanity of things over and over and repetition. It's like, what are we going to have for dinner? You know, the same stuff. That for me, joy comes when I get to play it by ear or do something different. You know, that's what takes me away from feeling kind of trapped and isolated, is when I can just change it up a little bit. I mean, something as small as, I'm not sure what we want for dinner, and let's go check and see if they have this there. And I come up with something different out of the blue. It's like, huh, that makes me happy. So I
I
don't know
think
what that is.
recognizing, I think one of the things that's really important is just recognizing what we need, right? Being able that it takes pausing to even recognize that what we need in terms of self-care, right? And I think that's being able to acknowledge the secondary stress that we're all under in a caregiving capacity, and being able to recognize that it's helpful, right? We can only be at our best as a caregiver if we're also at our best for ourselves. And I think that we can all achieve that in different ways, right? Some people, you know, we can use movement, we can use music, we can use words, right? We can use our breath, we can use our minds, our spirituality. All of these are different ways that we can tools. And I think the whole concept that how this came together was that we have so many different tools in so many different areas and domains that we can access. And how do we keep sort of keep some at the ready for us for when we feel like we need them. I think, Robin, I'm mindful of your time. I think we've gone a little past 4:30. I hope that's okay. If we have just a few minutes for people to be able to share a closing thought with us, we would love to hear it. And thank you so much for joining our session today. It's been lovely to be here with you.
Yeah, and just say before we conclude, I know we want to share, but we'll share Kelly and Mary's slides. It's a nice reminder of some of the things we talked about today, and we'll also post the recording online and the Spotify playlist and other things that Kelly and Mary mentioned.
I just wanted to share before we go, when I was caring for my mom, had Alzheimer's, and she lived with us the last 3.5 years of her life. So I took the Savvy Caregiver course that Alzheimer's Association offers. And the instructor, when she got to the self-care portion, recommended that you make a list of things that you enjoy doing, and then break those things into what you can accomplish in 5 or 10 minutes, 10 or 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. What's going to take half a day, what's going to take a whole day, and like whomever it was that went on vacation, and leave it on your refrigerator, so that when you find yourself at loose ends and you just need some time to yourself, you can just look at the list and say, I have this much time, I feel like doing that, and then go whatever it is, call a friend, pick up a book, make a cup of tea, whatever you've put on your list that's for you.
That's a great suggestion. I think the idea is it's hard sometimes in the moment for us to think of the tool.
Think of it. Yeah.
Right. And so it's
Yeah.
easy to just stay in that stuck, hard place. But if you
or
just
keep doing tasks and chores and errands instead of taking the
Exactly.
time for your
Exactly.
own respite. Yeah.
But if you have it there in front of you, right, hit the playlist, play one of the songs, right? Do some stretching exercises, right? Like, yeah, try doing a little bit of box breathing, right? Some of these things that you can do quickly that just sort of can take you out of that secondary stress experience.
Yeah.
Just briefly, that I've learned to what used to be kind of automatic. Okay, I've got some time. I'll check in with this person or call that person. Like, kind of my habitual way of living my life is checking in with people. And the way it is today. Now I say, well, if I call that person, does it feel soothing and relaxing, or is it gonna be agitating? So I don't do I try to think before I do what would be an automatic thing and realize I don't need that. What I need is not doing that. Anyway, if that makes sense, I didn't used to look at it that way, and now I'm able to just decide, is it gonna help me feel better or more calm? Or I guess that's what I always need when I'm needing something. It's gotta be soothing for me and not, I, I don't want to say not energizing because I do the exercise and stuff, but with people, I don't want it to be agitating. So I take it off the list. Do I really want to call that person? No, I'd rather just sit or lay on the bench or whatever it is. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I think one thing we can do is combine this list here of the 5 ways and some of the examples we've talked about with Denise's suggestion, and come up with that list that we actually write down and we put on the refrigerator, or we have someplace, put it on a little post-it note on our monitor, and have a list of 5 things that are at least 5 ways to take a 5-minute break.
I think, Robin, what I'll do is we were going to add some of the notes, some of the great suggestions and tools that people use that came out of the session.
Wonderful.
We'll add that into the slides so that there's a record
Great.
of in the slides. And then
Sounds great.
we'll get you a Spotify playlist also. So
Sounds great. That's wonderful. That'll be helpful not only to the people here, but people who couldn't make it today. Sounds great.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Kelly and Mary, so much. I thought it was a terrific presentation. As one of our attendees said, Susan, thanks for the excellent presentation. It was very interesting and gives us all something to think about. And we have some tools available now to us all to take 5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Appreciate it.